So I just got in a new knife here and I wanted to do an unboxing video on it. It is another one of the Sitivien knives. I was trying to look at a knife that I could pick up for under $20, kind of keeping in with that budget knife category that we've been looking at and seeing kind of how low I could go and still get something that was at least functional. I've had pretty good luck so far with the Sitivien, so I thought I saw this one for $19 on Amazon and I thought I would go ahead and give it a try. So we're going to do an unboxing. This is the Sitivien ST112. So you can see here, made in China. Of course, that's a given with these knives. And if that's something you're not looking for, then you'd want to stay away from these. And honestly, pretty much all your budget knives, that's what you're looking at. I don't think you're going to find budget knives in a $20 range that aren't made in China. But all right, so obviously the box looks cheap, which is to be expected. Nothing real fancy there. Not really concerned about the box though. So just pulling it out, kind of first impressions looking at it, it's not bad. The micarta's kind of got a rough look to it. It's not super polished by any means. But it gives it a little bit of grip being a little rougher. It's not super grippy, but it's got some grip to it, which is a good thing. Right off the bat, I did notice that it has a deep carry pocket clip, which I like. It does not have flush mounted screws, which I don't like. But I guess out of those two, if I had to have one or the other, I'd rather have the deep carry pocket clip than the flush mounted screws. Although both of those would be nice. Definitely no doubt about that. Not a lot to say other than that. You can see that the blade is fairly well centered. Maybe not perfectly centered. It's a little closer to this side over here than it is to the side with the belt clip. But I mean, that's nitpicking. That thing is pretty well centered, especially for a $20 knife. Much more centered than you would necessarily expect for something that cheap. All right, so you can see here, even before I open the blade, you've got the ST112 D2 steel on it. And again, I don't know whether these Chinese-made knives are really D2 steel. I have a feeling it's just something of a somewhat similar composition. I doubt it's true D2, but I don't have the money to send away the blade on a $20 knife to get that tested. So we're just going to say it's D2 according to them, or at least some kind of a D2 substitute. All right, so as far as opening, let's see what that's like. Well, this does have that ball bearing pivot, so it does open pretty smoothly. I will say it's not quite as smooth as like my Sitivens that I own, or actually even the other Sitiviens that I have. Don't get me wrong, it's still plenty smooth. That's not a hard knife to open at all. And that was my first time or two, so in fact, it already feels like it's kind of wearing in and getting a little bit smoother. But definitely plenty smooth for a $20 knife. I mean, that's way more than sufficient for what you would expect. As far as the overall length, blade shape, things like that. So again, this is D2. You've got the micarta scales. It's of course a liner lock, which seems to have okay engagement, but not super deep there. But it looks like about what I would expect for a knife in this price range. Again, the ball bearing action is kind of a bonus on a knife in this price range. That's not something you would typically see. Deep carry pocket clip is a bonus. This knife overall is about according to them, it's 7.7 inches, which probably looks about right. Blade is just a little over 3 inches at 3.1. Again, that looks right. Blade shape, I like this blade shape. I think, kind of having the sweep here, making it more of almost like a clip point style. I always have kind of preferred those anyway, so I do like that. It's a pretty nice looking, decent knife for $20. I mean, you do have the lanyard hole here if that's something that you're interested in. A lot of knives are including those nowadays, so that's kind of a nice addition for people who like to use those. I will note that the pocket clip does not appear to be reversible at all, so you're limited to that one option when it comes to carrying that knife. You're only going to be able to carry it with the way they have it currently mounted, which I have so many knives that have different ways of carrying them that honestly it doesn't really bother me. I just adjust to whichever knife I have in my pocket at the time. Even the ones that are reversible, very seldom do I bother to take the time to actually reverse those. So I don't know. First impressions, for $20, yeah, I'm impressed. I mean, that's not a bad looking knife for $20. Um, you know, about the only thing that even being trying to be nitpicky, uh, about the only things that I would have that could possibly be a con on this knife is kind of the rough milling almost look on the micarta, and it's really not that bad. It's just not very polished. You can even see where they cut out the lanyard hole. You know, if they could have maybe rounded those edges a little and smoothed them out, that would look a little nicer. And then the only other thing I have that's nitpicking on it is those screw heads not being flush mounted. That would have been a nice addition to have those flush mounted, but that's not the end of the world. So I gotta say, for $20, guys, I think it's a pretty good deal. Again, if you are trying to avoid China or Chinese made knives, then obviously this is not a good deal for you. And I would refer you then to like my Ontario Rat 1 video, which is a knife I would rather see somebody purchase if they're trying to avoid Chinese made knives. Now, there has been some controversy on that lately. I think there have been some knives floating around that have made in China on them, even with the Ontario Rats. I'm not sure if that's from the company or knockoffs, but I know you can still find the ones that are made in Taiwan if you prefer to do that. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap this video up. First impressions, I like it. I think definitely for the price point, I would probably give this thing price point maybe a 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10, just on initial impressions. Of course, we'll have to see how it actually holds up to use to get a good rating out of it. But as long as it holds up the way that I expect all the other ones that I have do, which is decently, then I would say that's definitely good bang for your buck, guys. $20 on Amazon as of the time of this posting. It's hard to go wrong with that.